Hi, I'm Matt Belitsky, and welcome to Reach. Today, what's the real story behind a recent acquisition at OpenAI, an introduction to prompt engineering, and was I hacked this week? The full story coming up today on Reach. There you go. That was my try at an intro video. That's the first time for everything. That was my first attempt. That's good. It was pretty good. We're gonna go put on a little music here. Chill. I'm gonna put on a chill playlist. Oh yeah, bring it down a little bit. All right, here we are, back at our weekly Reach session. Okay, so you're probably wondering, if you're new here, what does Reach mean? Reach is an acronym. R is radar, E is explore, A is applaud, C is challenge, and H is head start, or something like that. Anyway, we're gonna just feel it out because it's an iterative approach. So I'm Matt Belitsky, and I am excited to share with you a whole bunch of content today. I'm serving as an AI educator, and yeah, let's get right into the content. First up is radar. Let me go ahead and get my screen ready to show you some cool stuff. Now, I don't know about you, but there was some interesting news items this week around OpenAI. And I figured I would just jump right into it. So let me go into this. Here we go. Oh my goodness. And we go here. Oh, there we go. Catch Reach each week. Saturdays at 2 p.m. Hold on, I need to get myself situated here. Let's do and you can see me kind of, and we're gonna go to share screen, and we're gonna go here. There we go. Alrighty, so a couple weeks ago, May 6th, OpenAI acquired a company called Windsurf. And Windsurf is an IDE company. What does that mean? Don't worry, we're gonna get into the specifics. For $3 billion. And recently, as of just days ago, they announced something called Codex, which is a cloud-based software engineering agent. And the internet this week has been going wild about this news, talking about how exciting it is to have an AI coding agent. But what I don't think people realize is there are some dots to connect between these two things. Now, let's jump back over to Windsurf here. So Windsurf is very similar to Cursor, which is taking the internet by storm recently in a concept called vibe coding, where effectively you open up an application, you give the AI prompt a little bit of direction of what you're looking for, and then it goes ahead and builds out a website, a web application, something from scratch. And it's miraculous to watch and very cool. But what I wanted to share with you now is Windsurf is one of these technologies. Now, how exactly does it work? The application allows for a coder or programmer to do the programming, but there's a side panel which allows for conversating with the AI model, and you can choose which model you want to work with. And then as you're talking to it, it has the ability to go ahead and change the code in the application, and it builds the code at the same time. So you're giving it feedback, you're giving it context, and it's building out the code, and then you're testing it live to see what's happening. I think Cursor surpassed 1 million users, so it really is a world taking off with this vibe coding phenomenon. And Windsurf was always seen as the number 2 to Cursor, and now, of course, OpenAI has acquired it. And so I wanted to share some of the news and some of the news cycle and what's happening, and then maybe double click a little bit further in this radar section making sure that you're aware of what's happening in the world. So I'm going to go to, let's see, where's that TechCrunch article? Here it is. The TechCrunch is well known for tech news. And in this article, they talk about why OpenAI wanted to buy Cursor, but opted for the fast-growing Windsurf instead. And in this article, it's been a hot target. Cursor is one of the most popular AI-powered coding tools, and its revenue has been growing astronomically. We go down to Cursor turned down offers because the startup wants to stay independent. And there's talks about raising capital at a $10 billion valuation. So you can imagine the space is very hot right now. And as we go down and down and down, OpenAI is likely shopping because it's looking for the next growth areas of competitors, competitors of Google Gemini and DeepSeek from China, and Anthropic. Anyway, this article is basically saying, why does OpenAI want to buy Cursor but opted for the fast-growing Windsurf? And I think the reason they're providing is here, because they're shopping around for its next growth area. But I don't think that tells the full story. I believe there's another. Yeah, that's that. There's a Windsurf with a $3 billion acquisition of OpenAI is reportedly in talks to buy Windsurf for $3 billion, with the news expected later this week. And here you can see they took a screenshot of an email that Windsurf sent its customers, letting them know that something was going to happen. There's also some drama around the OpenAI startup fund, and that it's one of Cursor's biggest investors. And anyway, this news story and the news that I've been able to find mostly online talks about the companies battling against each other. It talks about the drama between them, but I don't think it really paints the full picture of what's actually happening. And so I figured what I would do is give you a little bit more to the story. And I put together some analysis based on what I was able to discern. But before I do that, I want to talk about Codex. So Codex is this cloud-based software engineer agent that OpenAI just came out with. And there's an article here, not too much, you don't have to know the technicals here, other than it works like a coding assistant, very similar to how I mentioned a Windsurf or a Cursor works, but within the OpenAI ecosystem. And it's great that, the Cursor news was in April, and then it officially happened, I think, May 6th. And then here's an article from May 16, even though we're a little bit after that. And so I want to now get into my analysis. So I think there's more to the story. I think there's something a little bit more nefarious going on here. I know that's bold claim to make, but this is the radar section of Reach, and so I figured I would, not hold back with you at all. Now, I used an article from Y Combinator, which is down here. Why is OpenAI buying Windsurf? And you can see there's a lot of conversation back and forth. This is where I helped form my opinion. And over here in my notes, there are a couple of different things I think that are going on. Here we go. Let's dive into it. So the first is, I'm going to read this. The $3 billion acquisition of Windsurf appears to be primarily about gaining access to rich, specialized data set of developer interactions, rather than just acquiring the technology or user base. So some of these people mentioned the valuable data generated through coding copilots, which is what Windsurf and Cursor are, isn't the code, but the step-by-step human AI interaction to produce the code. Windsurf and Cursor are effectively crowdsourced data annotation farms, which give their owners an edge in providing better coding models. Very interesting. So when you think about that article from TechCrunch talking about acquiring Windsurf for a growth strategy, in reality, you could think about it as if this was a data play where, in addition to getting data from what users are doing as developers, there's also the interaction data between how a developer works with the AI and then how it is able to give feedback to get the desired result or the undesired result. And through that interaction data, OpenAI would be able to bring a product like Codex to market with more fidelity in understanding that they can do a lot more because it will understand how the end user, which is a coder, would already do the coding. Very interesting, huh? Let's keep going. If agentic flows do take off, data becomes a more meaningful moat. Having a platform like Cursor or Windsurf enables these companies to collect telemetry about how users are coding that isn't possible from just looking at the repo or just looking at the code itself, the finished product. Next is, my guess is the telemetry data. OpenAI spends gobs of money on telemetry. Telemetry gets them similar data. So basically, what I'm saying here is the ability to go back and forth with the AI in Windsurf, and then the telemetry data is collecting, like I mentioned, the steps involved to get to the end result. And the amalgamation of all those steps together are, I think, what OpenAI has purchased so that it can make its own agent smarter. The other area here, competitive intelligence, is around another position. They couldn't care less about the tech. This was entirely about corporate accounts and user data. Windsurf caught this first wave of enterprise adoption to agentic coding IDEs, and they have tons of big customers now. Another user wrote, Codium's completion model is better than whatever GitHub Copilot has. Codium is what is used in Windsurf as the model. And so he's mentioning that Cursor is better than Codium, but much better than Copilot. And Copilot is what's used by Microsoft. And so this might be a play at OpenAI, which is deeply funded by Microsoft, trying to have a competitive advantage in coding over Microsoft, which is one of their investors. This is a little bit more to the story, and that's a theory. Another one here is that over 1,000 enterprise customers per this source suggests a rich data set of professional grade coding interactions. Okay, let me do a little bit more explaining. So when you're in these platforms like Cursor and Windsurf, you're interacting with models like Anthropic's Claude or OpenAI's GPT, except they're specialized just for you as a developer to use because they've been trained on how to do coding better. And you can use your own API key, but you're actually encouraged, or I guess discouraged to do so, because the draw is, at Windsurf or at Cursor, even though you would use your own key, you should use our keys because we have trained the models to be more effective. And in doing so, and not using your own keys, you are allowing the data that you are producing to be stored on Windsurf and Cursor servers to then be applied for training data, not necessarily for the model that you're interacting with, but for the model that Windsurf or Cursor use. And so you take a step back and you say, wait a second, there are 1 million users on Cursor. Do they know that by using Cursor, the data of what they're putting in place, coding, pages, apps, etc., all of that data is being amalgamated and used by Cursor and by Windsurf in this case to train their models to make them even better? I don't know if that's something people realize. Now, at the same time, when we talk about like a Facebook or something, people are pretty comfortable with putting all of their data into a platform and not necessarily understanding what's being done with their data, other than it's being stored securely for them to access all the time. And so there's a battle there of what exactly is being shared. And so I don't know if companies out there realize that by using Cursor without, I'm guessing, more security protections in place, you could be at risk of sharing your code with these companies and their models for training purposes. And so I think that there is a very rich data set in these platforms like Cursor and Windsurf. And I think that that's why they are getting these high valuations beyond just having a whole bunch of customers. And I think that's why they are acquisition targets. And it's interesting that Cursor said no to OpenAI because maybe they have something else cooking. But it's very interesting to see that OpenAI was able to acquire Windsurf and likely use the data set available to release their Codex product, or at least make it better than it intended to be originally. And there you go. There's a bit more to the story beyond what you might have heard in the news. And so again, the strategic implications here are dataset acquisition versus building, competitive defense, pre-launch fine-tuning, as I mentioned, and potentially enterprise signals. When you have 1,000 enterprise customers and the data that you have from your model that's been trained is on the interactions of the developers at those companies building a code base, it's pretty interesting. It's a pretty interesting data set. So that is our radar section. Now, just to conclude here for a second, at the initial live stream, I received feedback, which was this radar section should be focused on models, specifically OpenAI, Anthropic, and Google Gemini, because those are the three models that I've built into MatChat. And so what I'm planning on doing is showing you news around those three models because you're going to be able to interact with them when you use the MatChat app. Conversely, when you're searching in Google for other news, we can go to Anthropic News. You'll see that Anthropic in the news this week is all about a $2.5 billion credit facility and having the lawyer from Anthropic having to apologize for an AI hallucination in a music publisher's lawsuit. So not much beyond that with Anthropic. A lot of the news for OpenAI was, taken with Codex. And then, excuse me, if we look at Google Gemini news, you'll see that we have not much more. There's some expected updates. Google rolling out AI, very, very sanitized results here. And you have to remember that this is Google that I'm using. And so you would assume that they would want to likely put guardrails in place about what news is surfaced potentially about their products. So you have to take everything with a grain of salt when you read it online. And that's my advice. But if you want to hear more opinion and you want to hear more of a double click, then please continue to join me on these live streams weekly. All right, let's go ahead and stop sharing this screen, which I do by going here. Lovely. Listen, still getting used to these let's live stream technology. But that was cool, huh? So a little bit of a different perspective. Go back to my notes. Over here. All righty. Okay, so a couple things that I wanted to share with you before we go to the next section. Had the inaugural live stream last week. Thank you so much for the people that watched it after the fact. You didn't know I didn't have any viewers because I didn't tell anyone I was going to be broadcasting this. But now there are a few subscribers, so very appreciative for that. A note on liking and subscribing. I learned that the algorithms on both YouTube and Rumble are influenced greatly by you liking and subscribing. So please feel free to do that. But I want to make sure that when you do, it's when you feel like you've gotten some value out of this dialogue, conversation, etc. And so please feel free. Don't need to like it right now, just out of happenstance. But over the course of this live stream, if you feel like you're getting value, I would appreciate your like, and of course, I would appreciate if you subscribed, so that I can, continue this with momentum and understand that there are people out there who are interested in this content. Okay, so that's that. Another thing is I got some feedback around the music. I was told that the music was great. Somebody else said that it was awful. Can't please everyone, so I decided to just keep it real low for today. We'll meet in the middle. And yeah, I think we'll keep going, and I'll share some more learnings along the way. You might also notice that my camera's flipped. This is actually what I look like when you're looking at me. Last week it was mirrored, and so now it's been changed. Okay, let's go to Explore. Let me get my screen ready to do this. I'm gonna show you some cool stuff in MatChat. Just a moment. Doing this live. Doing this live. Okay, we've got this. Get rid of this and this. Move this over here. This over here. Okay. Now, how am I going to do this? Good question. I'm going to go like this. We're going to go entire screen. I'm going to start here. And can I share another thing? Okay. Oh, alrighty, all good. Okay. And okay. Doing this live, a little clumsy. Okay, so here's what I wanted to go over. So I'm in MatChat right now, and I think I shared this last time. MatChat is my app where you can interact with Claude, Gemini, and GPT OpenAI models all in one place. I'm going to change this to, I was giving this example last time. You are my chief of staff. And we'll keep it there like that. Okay, so let me give you a little bit more to the story here of what we're dealing with. And hopefully this will be cool for you. So whenever you're in a chat application, there are a couple of important things to know. So down here we have our chat input, and I have the ability with the plus button to add an image, a file, and use that as part of the conversation here. Next up, we have the model picker, which is what you saw before. And I'm right now going to use Claude 3.5 Sonnet. In the prompt, this is me telling the AI what kind of character I want it to be. Now, when you use ChatGPT or Claude in the interfaces provided when you subscribe to those services, these are not necessarily available. And instead, they're chosen for you because it's assumed that you don't need to make any changes. And so they tend to be like helpful assistants or research partner, something like that. But the beauty of my app and giving those users who have access to it now flexibility to choose not only the model, but also choose the character that they want it to be. And so here I have it as my chief of staff. I can also give it more specific instruction, like every response should include 3 bullet points and a so what punchline. And then this is the character that it would be for the entire chat, as long as I keep this chat going. So pretty interesting. You can think of some interesting use cases, and we're going to get into them in a little bit. But for now, I figured I would just start with "You are my chief of staff," and that's that. Let's now go over to this guide that I put together for today, which is a guide to prompt engineering. So in our explore phase today, we are going to go over, and let me see if I can make this big enough size. Oops, there we go. How about this customize? Well, there we are. Make it wider. How's that? That doesn't really help me. Make it bigger. How's that? There you go. Oh, we're just going to go with that. Okay. So here we are in our explore section, which is the E of Reach. And what I'm sharing with you today is content where we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive into the world of prompt engineering. Now, this guide is something that I've created, and I'll give you some more specifics in a while, but for now, let's jump right into it. And this is a way for me to show you how to interact with MatChat or a chat platform. And so here we go. Let's start with the foundation. This is the Core 4 framework. Understanding these 4 essential elements helps you craft clear, effective prompts that get the results you need. Think of this as your foundation for successful MatChat interactions. Each element plays a crucial role in getting precise, relevant responses. So, demo, the Core 4 framework. Basic prompt, analyze this data set. An effective prompt instead is providing, I've updated quarterly sales data for our North American region, which is giving the context. Please analyze this data set, which is the instruction, with focus on seasonal trends and regional performance, the context. Here's the PDF file, the input, and then provide a structured analysis with key insights and visualization showing year-over-year comparisons output. It's a lot more detailed than just saying analyze this data set. And this is a great first step in understanding how to get more value out of engaging with AI models through MatChat. So we're going to try this out, and I'm going to switch back over to here. Oops. And we're going to try it out. So we've got, let me open up, I'm going to actually add in, I don't know if you can see this. Nope. But I'm going to add in the MatChat guide to prompt engineering, which is the file that I am sharing with you in the background here. And what I could normally do is say, provide insight on this file. See what happens there. There you go. So it's broken down. And you might say to yourself, this is pretty cool, but what I really want to see out of this is more detail. Well, let's try this again with a new chat. We can add in this document again, and instead, we'll give it a little bit more of those core elements, which I'll paste here. So the first thing is instruction. Review this document and provide a summary. I'll also review this document. Next is context. What background information is crucial? Say the guide has helpful tips and tricks, but I'm mostly interested in how to request help. Excuse me. Input, what materials are you providing? So we're going to say help context is somewhere in the doc, and output is provide a bulleted list of what to do. All right, let's see it work its magic. Interesting. I went back to chicken because I had it set over here to you are a chicken instead of you are a chief of staff. So that's my bad. Love this live demo situation. When you have everything prepared, ready to go, and you think everything's going to be perfect, and then the moment that you start sharing something live, you realize there are a whole bunch of things you didn't consider. Welcome to the last 10 minutes of what's been going on in my head. And so what I'm going to do right now is pivot. And instead, I'm going to share with you something that is interesting to me, which is if you go to my website, which I shared last time, thedataguy.com, and you're over on any of these pages, you'll see right now MatChat is invite only. It's in beta. I have it used by two sets of users. There's enterprise users, which are working at specific companies that have invite only access. And then there are those people in my community that have invite only access. And so if you go down to community and the quick links, it'll open up this school community, and you see we have 2 members. So it's myself and someone else. And if you see this in the future, look, live, Reach Weekly live stream. Here we have, I'm just getting set up, but we have here the guide to prompt engineering, and it has the document in here for you to take advantage of. So in addition to joining the community to get invite-only access to MatChat, you'll also be able to benefit from this resource and use MatChat for yourself to work through the content of this Explore section. In here, I also have, just to show you with you, leveraging MatChat features, how to do file management, how to manage images, and then I have the 10 best practices for effective communication with specifying exact quantities, showing an example of desired output, choosing the right tone, etc. And this is really helpful for working through the details and then putting it all together and then getting MatChat support down below. And so this document is available to anyone who joins the Skip the Line community, which is available in the community quick links at thedataguy.com. And so with that, I will conclude this Explore section, and we'll keep the party moving. So here we go. Let's go stop screen share. Okay, fantastic. Here we are. Next up, we've got the challenge section. So let me go ahead and pull open my notes. And we've got the following. So, okay. Last week, I mentioned that I launched thedataguy.com, which I have open here. Let me go share thedataguy.com, which is this. Here, I had that open before. And if you click on, if you click on students, professionals, or seniors, or even here, it drops you into this success roadmap section. And I wanted to say that when you click on get your free roadmap and it brings you to this page, you enter your email, you get access to all 3 of the personalized roadmaps, the one for students, professionals, and seniors. Look, she knows what she's doing. She has a secret weapon, and it's that roadmap, and it's in her hands, but it could be in your hands. You just need to enter your email at thedataguy.com, thedataguy.com, and come on down to the bottom and enter your email. And what I wanted to share is that I had 5 downloads this week, which is exciting because the week before this website didn't exist. And so I'm so thrilled that there are a few people who got a head start, you could say, in this content. And the reason that this was my challenge for the group last week is because this is the prelude to the book, which I've written called Skip the Line, that comes out on June 26th. And so I'm really excited to get this book out there. And you can pre-order it on Amazon by going to thedataguy.com/skiptheline, or thedataguy.com, and you'll get what you need there. So that's that. I have a whole bunch of cool stuff. Oh, look who it is. It's me, and I'm there. And there's a couple of early readers, people that have had a pre-read who have interesting things to say. You could say they only have good things to say, which is flattering. And yeah, there's a call out on the bottom to join the community where you can jump in and see what's happening with Skip the Line. So that's one thing. And another thing that I wanted to share is something I mentioned in the intro, which is MatChat Hacked. What's this about? And since this is the challenge section of Reach, I figured what I would do is share. Oh my goodness, I skipped over the A. REACHA. Okay, let's go to A. A is applaud. Oh, we're doing this live. Okay, so applaud. There are several people using MatChat. And instead of me using this section to applaud strangers that I don't know who are doing cool things in AI, instead my intention is to make this more personalized by focusing on applauding the people who are using MatChat and creating leverage for themselves, day to day. And so I have a couple of different stories for you to share about who is using MatChat and what they are using it for. So first things first, I have a teenager who is using it, and they have their parents' permission. And one of the ways they're using it is to explain to their parents how cool trends like vibe coding, mentioned before, or IDE, or a whole bunch of acronyms that are popping up all over the place in the news, what they mean. And, this teenager grew up with their parents, but their parents grew up in a different world. And so what the teenager has been able to do is explain in terms the parents understand by using MatChat in a specific way. And I'll give you that example. He said, hey, my parents are millennials who grew up with specific milestones. Tell me what those are. And so MatChat gives a list of what the milestones are along the lifetime of a millennial. It says, okay, I'm trying to explain what vibe coding is. Can you please relate it to one of these things? And so then just live when they're sitting at dinner, the teenager is able to explain these concepts in a way where people are able to digest the content. And it's just a really interesting way to explain and communicate. And so that's happening in one use case. Okay. Another one is a user who got access just a few days ago, and they were able to go through the backlog of LinkedIn recommendations that they were asked to write. And by putting in some context about the recommendee and the working relationship, MatChat was able to spit out some recommendations that were really on point, and through a bit of massaging back and forth, created some great leverage. Another person that's using MatChat is planning Zumba classes. It's a senior planning classes for other seniors. And what she's been able to do is come up with a whole bunch of creative class content which has been able to set her apart from the normal, other people that I guess she's competing with for time and attention in her business. So that's been exciting. Another person was able to create a recipe or they were able to solicit help to create a recipe for a specific type of dietary restriction to create a cookie. And then they were able to brand the cookie and and how it was explained to somebody in a really personalized way so that they would get a chuckle out of it. And in another use case, somebody was walking in the street, and this woman approached him, and she was asking something specific, but she spoke Japanese, and of course he didn't speak any Japanese. And so this guy pulled open MatChat and was able to give general direction on what was happening, and said, but do it in Japanese. And then this person was able to understand and immediately what was happening in the moment. I think it was something very benign around something around signage or not understanding, how the rules worked on the road or something like that. But through just a bit of conversating with MatChat and then converting to Japanese, all of these people were able to create value in their lives. And so when I think about the power of MatChat, and I think about AI, and the term is overused, and I probably overuse it myself, I think to myself about how it's mostly just about value creation. And when you think about it, everybody has their own value. You can think about it like your job. Like, what do you do at work versus what your friends do? And maybe that's your value, or is your value something more specific where you're able to do research the quickest, or analyze documents the fastest, or produce amazing PowerPoint presentations, or come up with the best social media posts that hook people in, or like something. Everyone has their own like unique value. And I think that what AI does is it allows people to get a shortcut into not only being celebrated for their value, but amplifying their value. And in addition, unlocking new value that this individual might not have, but in a superhuman way where they can learn quickly how to provide more value. And so what I really love is how the people that are using MatChat are getting these shortcuts and unlocking this value. And that's what I'm trying to convey through the book, Skip the Line. And my whole practice is around trying to make sure that people understand that as long as they can understand their own value, there is a bright future with them with AI, because it's going to be used as an amplification mechanism and an unlocking mechanism instead of a replacement mechanism. And so that is my applaud section for today. Okay, next up, we're going to go into challenge. And so I teased you before about hacking. And I also talked about the success guide. So let me connect a whole bunch of dots here. Like I mentioned before, got 5 downloads. Really appreciate the people that have done that and taken a head start to connect dots between what they can do in preparation for learning AI, whether they're a student, senior, or professional, and how it permeates or translates eventually into this book, Skip the Line. And I know we covered that already, so I'll just keep going. And for the challenge section, I want to share with you a challenge that I had, which I think you'll appreciate. And that is, I was working with a developer, and they committed a specific piece of code for MatChat, and I was testing it with one of my users this week, And inevitably, in that moment, the entire app crashed. And I had never had this before, and it was very frustrating for me. But more importantly, had empathy for my users who were in that moment stuck and unable to continue using it. And that's why it's in beta. That's why I'm not selling it by itself yet. It's by invite only, because I want to make sure that these issues are resolved. But in any case, you can imagine in that moment, I was very frustrated. And when I reached out to this developer to ask for assistance, they were very apprehensive about helping. And I realized that what had happened is they didn't test the code in a way that you would if you were the owner of an application. And this is when I said to myself, I need to be better about making sure that when I'm relying on third parties or second parties, I need to make sure that I hold them to the same high standards that I do for myself, because I've never had a problem with the app before. And so using MatChat, I was able to diagnose exactly what was wrong with the code, fix the code, and then come up with a communication plan to let my users know that they could not only continue to use the app, but that they didn't have to worry about it being broken going on in the future. So I use my own app to help me with my own business. And then the other thing is that when I communicated all of this to the developer, instead of, I thought what would happen is the developer would say, wow, like, great, glad you were able to do that. Doesn't sound like you need my help. But instead, the developer told me, oh yeah, well, you were hacked. And I said, how so? And they said, oh, well, when you experience the app crashing, it's because you were hacked. And I said, how is that possible? It didn't give me a lot of details. And so I spent quite a long time on 2 of my evenings this week trying to reverse engineer all of the code in my code base that I either didn't 100% understand or could be circumspect or subject to hacking. And again, using MatChat as my study partner, research partner, coding partner to understand like what's going on, I am very pleased to tell you that I was not hacked, and that was an excuse that the developer used because they didn't want me to know that the code that they built was not up to par. And in doing so, I learned a lot about security engineering, and I also learned that my app is really, really secure, which is great because it's built for enterprise. And that was the whole ethos from the beginning, is it has to be ready for the enterprise. And so I'm a little bit tired this week because I've spent so many hours of blood, sweat, and tears pouring myself into MatChat this week by making sure that it's working properly and efficiently, and also that it was not hacked, and that it is, I hope, impenetrable. But that's my take, and I used MatChat as my partner in crime to get it all done. So just chatting with myself, and I couldn't be more pleased. So I think to myself, like, if I am getting tremendous value out of this app, there must be a way to make sure that everyone else can know about it. And I feel like these reach sessions can really be the trick. But I know it's early days, and I'm still trying to figure out my footing on here. So that would be anyway. That's something to share with you. Now, if you're still with me, I would like to ask a favor of you, and that would be, I would love for you to add a comment, and I'd love for you to add the word value in all caps. Why? If you're currently a MatChat user and you're getting value, then I would love to see value. If you're a person who wants to use something like MatChat to get value, to go through the use cases I'm talking about, add value, mention value as a comment, and hopefully I can add value to your life. And then in general, if you just want to support me, go ahead and mention value in a comment. That would be fantastic. Again, feel free to like and subscribe. Every session is going to get iterated and better over time, early days. And yeah, that's my challenge section. So appreciate those that downloaded the asset by providing their email. I'm thrilled that MatChat is safe and secure and working for the users that are using it on beta through invite only. Again, if you don't have enterprise access to it currently and you want access, go ahead and join the community. You can check it out at thedataguy.com. Scroll to the bottom in the footer and click on community, and then you'll see you're able to join with a 7-day trial, I believe, for now, and you'll be able to access MatChat after you become subscribed, and you'll have obviously the prompting guide that I mentioned earlier in the explore section. Okay, and next up, I'm going to go to H, which is heads up, which is our last section. And I'm going to talk to you next week about vibe coding. And I'm planning on doing a bit of pre-work so that I don't run the clock out talking here. And instead, I can just show you some content of me doing this. So a couple things to mention. Windsurf and Cursor, as mentioned before, are platforms that enable a developer or non-developer to code and to basically build out a web app or a website, etc. And the feedback that I've received about the Data Guy, let me show you the Data Guy again, just to make sure you're on the same page as me here. Let's go over here, window here. Is that the colors are very loud, and it's very loud. And so what I'm planning on doing is redoing this website with you as my audience and using Cursor as my coding platform. Now you're like, well, Matt, Cursor might get access to your data. I don't care. I have no secret information because my website's public and there's no intellectual property that we need to worry about. So I could use the help, to be honest with you, after this week in engaging with the developer that I mentioned. I probably have a bit more confidence in Cursor than I do in asking for help from a third party, just based on my week thus far. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put together some version of a pre-read, which is going to be available in the community, which again, you can access by going to the bottom and then clicking on community. And then I will be back here at 2 p.m. Eastern next week, where I will be going over an introduction to vibe coding. And hopefully you'll have fun laughing at me along the way, because it's not a perfect science, and I've definitely made some mistakes in the vibe coding process, and I think that you'll appreciate laughing along with me. So with that, I'll stop sharing, and I can't believe an hour has gone by already. This is wild. I would love to do more show and tell by showing you end-to-end how a process could be revamped or how a conversation could be initiated. I'm just trying to find my footing. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and flash a few things on the screen. The first one is Skip the Line. The book comes out in June 26th, and you can go ahead and pre-order it by scanning the QR code right there on the screen. Skip the Line, unlock your unfair advantage. book. Very exciting. All the details available at thedataguy.com, and you can click on pre-order the book or go to thedataguy.com/skiptheline. I mentioned that the Success Roadmap is available for you to download for free at thedataguy.com, and already a handful of people have taken action. There's a different roadmap specific for students, for professionals, and for seniors, and that is available to you by going to thedataguy.com and clicking through the screens. And that's that. Now let's go down to captions. Here we go. Oh, there's that ticker down below. Skip the line, thedataguy.com/skiptheline. And I'm gonna get rid of that. Then we've got, here we go, Catch Reach each week, broadcast live Saturdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. And I hope in a few weeks we can look back and laugh at how rudimentary these initial Reach sessions were, but it's good practice, and I appreciate your patience as I figure it out. So that's happening. And I guess that's about it. So thank you this way. Thank you for your time and attention. And I hope you learned something. And I look forward to seeing you at a future Reach session. All right. Have a wonderful rest of your day and week. And we'll see you back next week to talk about vibe coding. And the onus is on me to find some cool vibey music that we can spin on and figure things out together.